Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Andy Biggs from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I'm a co-chair of the House Border Security Caucus with my co-chair, Brian Babin, from Texas, and we're grateful that you're here. As you know, border security was a major issue over the last 4 years, and particularly in this last election cycle. And the President has named Tom Homan to serve as the Border Security Czar, and I'm happy and feel confident that he's going to help secure our border. As I go through this, though, I want to pay a special tribute to a friend of the Border Security Caucus. My friend Art Del Cueto from the Tucson sector is retiring this Friday from the Border Patrol after more than 20 years of service. And most of these guys up here who've attended a border CODEL with me over the last 4 years or so will know Art Del Cueto because he's been there and he's been a fierce advocate for securing the border. Tom Homan wanted me to make sure I mentioned this. So the sanctuary city issue is particularly pernicious. And in Arizona, my own governor has indicated that she's going to stand in the way of actually enforcement of the law. And the mayor of Tucson, Regina Ramirez, is going to also stand in the way. But the problem is this: when you prevent the arrest of a criminal illegal alien, you prevent the safety of the community. So you would otherwise remove that criminal illegal alien, put them in the safety of the jail. They'd be safer, the ICE agents would be safer, the community would be safer. When you ignore the law, the community is put at risk. The actual alien who has committed the crime, who is incarcerated, is at risk as well, and the ICE agents are they're at risk. But the other part of it is too, under the current Biden administration, if an ICE agent goes into a house and there's 12 illegal aliens in there, but they only have a hold or warrant for one, they're only allowed to pick up the one, even though they find that the other are illegally in the country. That will not be the case under the Trump administration. And so it would be antithetical to what the sanctuary cities are trying to accomplish by not cooperating with the border security czar and the ICE and other law enforcement trying to enforce our law. Our country is a great country. A lot of people want to come here. And under the Biden regime, literally millions of people have been brought into this country. I'm not going to get into CHNV program right now or CBP-1 app program, but those two programs in and of themselves have brought in more than 1.5 million people in the last 14 months. And that is going to stop on January 20th. I'm really hopeful that we're going to bring our border under control. I believe we will with this administration. And I'm here now, and I'm grateful for all of these folks who are here from the Border Security Caucus. I'm going to introduce now my co-chair and turn the time over to him, Mr. Babin, Brian Babin for Texas.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. And I also want to thank you for setting this up and having this press conference about this most pressing issue. I know it is in Texas. The most pressing issue in Texas is our border. So I want to say good morning to everyone. As the disastrous Biden administration is coming to an end, and with that, there will be an end of open borders, asylum abuse, lawlessness, sanctuary cities. All these will end as well. I have great confidence, and I want to thank God for that. The voters chose Donald Trump in a historic landslide victory because they knew that Donald Trump was a man who would put this country back on the right track. The American people can finally breathe a very big and deep sigh of relief. But for us as members of the House Border Security Caucus, our job has just begun. Month after month, we invite expert guests to come and give us an in-depth look at the problems that we're facing all along our southern border and as well our northern border as well. Dangerous drug and human trafficking cartels such as the Sinaloa and Jalisco are operating now in all 50 of our states. 100,000 Americans die each year of overdoses from drugs that are coming in over the border from Mexico. And over 230,000 migrant children are missing. Let that sink in. Where are they? Are they still alive? What's happened to them? International gangs like the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua have set up strongholds in at least 16 states across our great country. Nearly 100 people identified on our terrorist watch list were released and allowed to roam in our country freely. Every single one of these cartel thugs and evil terrorists needs to be deported immediately, and I am confident, like my friend Andy Biggs said, I'm confident that our president will start doing so immediately with his very wise appointee, Tom Homan, as his czar. Never have we seen and been so vulnerable to terrorism and crime, all because of Biden's, Harris's, and Alejandro Mayorkas's open borders. As we move into the 119th Congress, the House Border Security Caucus has a very clear vision, I want to assure you, to ensure that the American people are protected from those who seek to destroy our way of life and to right the wrongs of this previous administration. I'm very eager to work with the Trump administration once again. I'm very hopeful that we can solve these dire issues and to do so quickly to protect Americans. And now I'd like to give the floor to a man who has done more than just about anyone else to protect our borders, Jim Jordan. Yes, sir.
On day one, the Biden administration announced and implemented policies that led to the situation that Chairman Biggs and Mr. Babin described, the co-chairs of the caucus. Remember what they did on day one? They said, no more building the wall, no more remain in Mexico, and when you get here, you will not be detained, you will be released. And they announced that to the world. And as a result, you've had millions and millions of people come to the border because they know there's no wall to get over. They don't have to wait in Mexico, and they're going to get to go wherever they want. They're not going to be detained at the border. That's the thing. Those are the things that have to change, and that's exactly what's going to happen in 34 days when President Trump, Tom Homan, and their team take over. The other thing we got to do is pass again the good legislation we passed a year and a half ago, led by the chairman of the subcommittee on immigration on judiciary, Tom McClintock. We need to pass that legislation. We've talked to Leader Scalise. He plans to do that. So we want to pass that again, send it to the Senate. Hopefully they will take it up and implement the policies that will reverse what the Biden administration did and help President Trump, help our country get the kind of border control situation that we need. So I want to introduce the guy who did so much work, as Andy and Brian have done leading the caucus, the guy who did so much work in our committee on this issue, the chairman of the subcommittee, Tom McClintock from California.
Thank you. But let me point out that work would not have been possible without Jim Jordan's leadership on the House Judiciary Committee, and I am very grateful and honored to have had the opportunity to work with him on that subject. It's pretty clear, history is screaming this warning at us, that countries that either cannot or will not secure their borders aren't around very long. Under the Biden administration, we have seen the largest illegal mass migration in our history, overwhelming our social services, our public schools, our public hospitals, our homeless shelters, and unleashing the most violent criminal gangs in the world upon our local communities. The American people have finally given us the tools to secure our border, and this administration, under Trump, is fully prepared to do so. President Trump proved that simply enforcing laws can produce secure borders, but President Biden proved that a president intent on leaving our borders wide open can do so as well. In the next session, our first priority has got to be to enact H.R. 2 to assure that future presidents cannot subvert the law, as Biden has, and then to sanction sanctuary jurisdictions that are protecting criminal illegal aliens from deportation, and then to provide the measures the incoming administration requests to assure this tragedy never threatens our communities again. This border caucus has been a tireless and influential advocate for these policies. It's an honor to have been part of their work, and I personally want to thank Andy Biggs and Brian Babin for their leadership. They have done so many border tours for our members that have opened the eyes of a lot of our colleagues over the threat that this situation presents our country. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri. who is not here. So next on the list is Representative Kevin Hearn of Oklahoma.
I think I'm introducing you.
Oh,
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
I'm doing my Eric Burleson invitation. Congressman Bob Good from Virginia. Thank you to Andy Biggs, Chairman and Co-Chairman Brian Babin for leading this all-important issue, this all-important press conference to discuss it. We all know the numbers. The Biden administration has helped well over 13 million illegals to invade our country over the past 4 years. Some 2-3 million of which are known gotaways, those who don't surrender for all the free stuff that Mr. McClintock was talking about. These are the ones with the criminal ties and the terrorist backgrounds and the ones trafficking all the terrible things into our country. We know of hundreds of thousands of felons who are here illegally. And this has all been done on purpose by the Biden administration. Democrats believe that everybody around the world, the 7 billion people who don't live in the United States, have the right to come here with no limit, legally or illegally. Now that the border will begin to be sealed come January 20, we're going to find out who's here. When their accomplices can no longer stream unrestricted across the border, sadly, we're going to find out who's here. That's why Tom Homan's determination on the direction of President Trump to have this massive deportation is so important. That's why it's so criminal, literally, for these mayors and these governors, these Democrats who are saying, we're going to resist. We hate the country so much, and we love these illegal aliens more than American citizens so much, we're going to do everything we can to resist that. And while Republicans, sadly and unfortunately, for the last 2 years have refused to defund Mayorkas' border invasion and literally gave him a $3 billion raise in the CR this past spring, hopefully Republicans will show a willingness to actually do what we say and defund these sanctuary cities and states. So thank you to my colleagues for standing strong on this issue. This is a critically important issue. Thank you again to Chairman Biggs and Babin for leading this. And now I will introduce the great Kevin Hearn from Oklahoma.
10 million illegal immigrants. And no, that's not a headline, that's a failure. Since Biden took office at our southern border alone, there have been 8.2 million encounters and worse, 2 million known gotaways. Slipped past Border Patrol and disappeared into our communities. That's more gotaways than the entire previous decade combined. Every day we wait, more lives are lost to fentanyl flooding across our southern border. Under President Biden, over 200,000 Americans have died. Think about that. 200,000 Americans have died because of his failed border policy, and more than twice the number that died in Vietnam. This has got to end, and it will on January 20th. The American people are fed up. They outright rejected Joe Biden's failed America Last agenda, but instead of listening, Biden doubled down. He's not just ignoring the crisis, he's selling off pieces of the border wall, as you all have been reading. I tell you this, that wall will be back in action on day one under President Trump when he returns to office. It will serve as a deterrent. It was meant to be because it works and the American people demanded it. The border crisis didn't happen by accident. It's a direct result of Joe Biden's actions. On that day, he dismantled every single border security measure that President Trump put into place, and the consequences have been devastating. For 4 years, Joe Biden put America last. He put your safety last. He put the border last. And when he came together and passed H.R. 2, the strongest border security bill this country has ever seen, Biden ignored it. He refused to act. Kamala Harris, that famous border czar, even said on national television that she wouldn't change a single thing. But here's the truth. Joe Biden created the crisis. No matter how much he pretends to care, he caused the mess we see. President Trump has promised to fix the crisis, and we know he can because he did it before. When Donald Trump is back in the White House on January 20th, America will have a secure border again. The American people are ready. It's time to put America first, because if not America first, then where do you want America to be? And end this chaos once and for all. We have 33 days until sanity is restored to the White House. I look forward to working with President Trump and my colleagues to shut down the border, send illegals home, and restore safety and security to our nation. And now, the very famous Scott Perry. Very famous.
Famous
very.
or infamous? Infamous. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to stand with my colleagues, and this is really a story of contrast. The difference between the Biden administration, the hard left, the radical left, President Trump and average everyday Americans who can see the difference even though mainstream media refuses to report on it. Now, mainstream media and legacy media can finally be a great partner with the truth and the American people. Right now, as we all stand here, thanks to Andy Biggs and Brian Babin working throughout this whole process of the Biden administration, right now, as we stand here, President Biden's selling off sections of the border wall that have been sitting rotting in the desert, selling them off for pennies on the dollar. The contrast is that President Trump wants to secure the border, and just like you lock your home, and just like there's a wall or a fence around the White House, part of the security of that is making sure the wrong people don't just walk in. But right now, President Biden is selling off that, making sure that the American taxpayer has to pay more to secure their own country. That's the contrast. And right now, while for years colleagues on the other side of the aisle went and cried about the poor people that came here, the children being separated, it was their policies that separated the children. It was their inhumanity that have put, 230 to 300,000 lost children into the United States of America to be trafficked. Can you imagine the horror? And they know what's been going on. They've known all along. When they send these children to post office boxes or warehouses or something like that, that no one in their family is there to greet them. They've known all along. That is the contrast between humanity and inhumanity. And it is time for legacy media, for the press in general, to tell the true story about the horror of just wide open borders and the inhumanity of it. And we're here to say that we stand for our country, the American citizens, because we all want to help. We all know people want to come to America for a better life, but there's a process by which they do that. And immigration first has to be great for America and the Americans, because the sanctuary of America is for Americans and people that want to come here legally, not for gang members. We just watched over and over again on TV where this reporter was questioning J.D. Vance, the soon-to-be vice president. Oh, it's just a couple apartment complexes that the Venezuelan gangs have taken over. Well, I'm sure glad it's not her apartment complex. I wonder if she would feel differently if they were prevailing on her. This is the indifference of the press to the plight of Americans like Jocelyn Nungare and Rachel Marin, who have lost their lives, and that inhumanity. So this is a story of contrast. These folks behind me, led by the chairman, have been on this case all along, and we're very, very pleased to tell the American people that this humanity, this change is coming, and we're asking the press to actually start reporting the truth finally. With that, I yield to Michael Cloud from Texas.
Amen.
Well
said.
Greetings from the great state of Texas. The long national nightmare of our open borders is almost done. The American people have spoken very loud and clearly. They want a secure border. They have elected President Trump because they know he can do that. For years, this administration has continued to allow cartels to profit to the tune of billions of dollars, meanwhile ravaging our communities, destroying families, tens of thousands of people dead from fentanyl, hundreds of thousands of children lost, and they tried to pass this off as if it was something compassionate. It is not compassionate to allow our borders to be open. It is not compassionate to allow people and criminals to stream into our communities. It's not allowed to partner with cartels in allowing them to grow into an outsized influence in even countries south of us and across the world. Those who are trying to do it right, even in those countries, find themselves in a place where the cartels have so much power that they become a destabilizing force in those countries. All this due to our failed border policies. There's nothing compassionate about it. Thankfully, we have a president who's coming who will be willing to do something about it. And the concern for us here is we have to make sure that we're willing to step up to the plate and support the president in making sure it gets done. We've seen courts work their magic in trying to prohibit him from securing the border last time. He did a great job anyway, but we must pass H.R. 2 and we start off the term very early, very quickly. We need to make sure we give the president all the funds he needs to secure the border, to have all the tools for the technology, the infrastructure, everything that needs to happen at the border, but also, as Congress, we need to defund the wrong things. We need to stop sending these agencies money to do bad things. And that includes the magnet that continues to draw people here through wrong and illegal processes. So we will have to take the tough votes. We will have to do the job that's required of us in Congress. I encourage our colleagues to steel our spine toward the work that is ahead to make sure that we make good on the promise that we've given the American people. And thank you for being here. And I will, Ralph Norman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Michael. You know, and as has been said, in 33 days, the nightmare will be over with. And I want to thank Congressman Biggs and Congressman Babin for leading it, as well as everybody behind me. Folks, what's happened to this country, America did not bargain for. America did not bargain for letting crime invade our streets, to let the gangs come in. You know, you can't, I wondered a lot of times if it were Biden's daughter who got killed as Lakeland Riley did, how would his view change? Or if it were his son or daughter who aimlessly went in the country with no guardians. I'm the one that got a call with busloads of children coming in North Carolina and South Carolina, of young children, and coming in late at night, checking in, and leaving early in the morning. And when asked what they were doing, wouldn't say a word. If you count the number of children alone, which is over 500,000, that's 6 football stadiums of children, unaccompanied minors. But the evil that this has done to this country, and the cost that we're having to pay now, which is worthy. What I'm excited about is a man like Tom Homan, who will get the job done. What I'm excited about is the funding that's going to take place to stop this insanity. And what I'm excited about is the whole mood of the country is not putting up any longer with what's taken place this last 4 years. And to top it off, selling parts of the wall. All of us have been to the border. The panels are $5,000 and $10,000 a piece. Selling them for $5, as we've heard, is insanity and it's evil. So I'm excited about what President Trump will do. I'm excited about what people behind me will do, and it's going to be a new day in America. Thank you so much for covering. Amen. And now I call on Tom Tiffany.
Good morning, everybody. It was a little over a decade ago that a previous president said, we're going to transform America. He did not accomplish it in 2 terms. But his vice president, who is now the president, he was determined to do it, and to a certain extent, he has been successful. We've heard the stories about the terrorists coming into our country in record numbers. You heard about the fentanyl poisonings that affect the districts of all of us throughout America, including in Wisconsin, as well as the places where you live. We've heard all those stories. But I think the greatest story is the human trafficking operation, which is almost unprecedented in American history. It rivals slavery from 300 to 400 years ago, the number of people that are being trafficked here through America by the cartels and others. And it is a sad day for America. And when the history of the 21st century, of the early 21st century is written, this will be a blight on American history, this massive human trafficking operation that was established. It's all going to end in January. And I look forward to working with my colleagues behind me because we have a big task in front of us. And I believe we should take H.R. 2, which was passed through the Judiciary Committee. Members behind here did a significant amount of work. I wrote one portion of that bill, and that was the parole portion. Parole is meant to be done on a case-by-case basis. We've seen the Biden administration, with Alejandro Mayorkas complicit in this, where they've used parole to bring people en masse into this country from Afghanistan, from Haiti, from Venezuela, from countries around the world. And we need to take H.R. 2 as the template here as we go forward and include that parole revision in there to make sure that we can keep the American people safe. So I just want to thank Brian Babin and Andy Biggs for the leadership they've provided, because they've shown a light on this issue and helped elevate it to one of the top 2 issues in this election on November 5th, when the American people said, we want this to stop. I can't wait to go to work after January 1st with this group behind me, representing the American people to make America's southern border secure once again. And I turn it back to Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everybody who's here and who's spoken. I'm going to cover just 2 quick points, just as a point of contrast. Just a few years ago, as Joe Biden was getting ready to be sworn into office, you could see illegal aliens gathering at the border. Particularly, I remember a vision that came through pictures that when the media would cover this, from the Zocalo in Tijuana, just across the border from San Diego. What did you see? You saw individuals wearing T-shirts saying, Biden, let us in, those types of things. Now what's happened is you have the Philippine ambassador to the United States calling for all Filipinos who are illegally in this country to repatriate to the Philippines before President Trump takes office. That type of repatriation is going to happen as people really come to understand and believe that this administration is going to actually remove people. 1.5 million people with removal orders already in place, already had due process. They will be removed. Over 500,000 people who with criminal backgrounds who are illegally in the country, they will be found and removed. People will start self-repatriating. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is that the cartels have sensed this urgency. So when I was in San Diego, right by Tijuana, just not too long ago, we ran into folks from Guatemala and Honduras and India. We asked how much you paying. The guy from India, we couldn't really understand what he said, but the other folks, $5,000 a piece, $5,000 a piece. You know what the going rate right now is? In excess of $10,000 per person. Why? Because the cartel knows that Donald Trump means business and Tom Homan means business and hopefully Congress means business, and we're going to close and secure our border. With that, I'll take any questions.
If I may, I have a 2-part question, if you'll indulge me. One, in response to Donald Trump's terror threat, Canada announced yesterday they'll spend $1.3 billion to secure the northern border. It's a wide range of measures from tracking down on precursors for fentanyl, more border patrols, that kind of thing. I'm wondering if that's on anyone's radar, if anyone has any reaction to that. And part 2 of my question, if I may, Donald Trump keeps talking on social media about making Canada the 51st state. I'm curious as to anyone has any insight as to why or what you might think of that.
So humor is dead. I think to the second part of the question, I think Donald Trump is being humorous, okay? The first part of the question is, yes, I think we're aware of that. And indeed, that's what happens when you have a strong leader come in and lay down markers. And so we're really happy about that. And also, President Sheinbaum in Mexico has indicated, at least has indicated a willingness to try to work to resolve some of these issues. And by the way, the cartels are actually very concerned about our enforcement as well. And you're seeing that in some of their actions, including the raising of price and trying to get people in before the 21st of January. I think you had a question?
Yeah. So you guys have obviously developed a lot of legislation like H.R. 2 this Congress.
Right.
That, as you mentioned, you want to try to get through now that Republicans will have the trifecta next year. But in your conversations with Tom Homan and others, from the executive standpoint, how is it going for them standing up the executive operation when it comes to mass deportation and that sort of thing? And how quickly will they be able to sort of change the bureaucratic inertia and start implementing?
Well, so the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take the shackles off ICE and CBP, and they're going to say, enforce the law. They want to do expedited removal as well. You add those in there, and that will actually slow down the flow at the border almost immediately. The other thing that they're going to need resources. Those resources are going to be everything from personnel. They're going to need seats on planes to remove people. They're going to need some soft-sided facilities to go up for people. So we've talked about that, the resources that they need. Congress is going to have to deliver on those resources. And once that, they're ready to go, because the first step is to say we're going to enforce the law. And I think some of these mayors and governors who said they're going to remain sanctuary cities and states, they're going to find themselves in hot water with hopefully Attorney General Pam Bondi as she looks into obstruction of justice and aiding and abetting criminal cartels. So I think they're ready to go. Talking to Tom, he's fired up, and he's going all over. You saw that he met with Mayor Adams of New York this week, so he's really going for it.
Forgive me if you addressed this in your opening statements, but could the Lake and Riley Act be a part of the first 100 days, and also any type of legislation to enshrine remain in Mexico in the law instead of doing it through executive order?
Yeah, so I do think Lake and Riley law and other laws that have been promulgated that are put forward that haven't made it through, I think you're going to see those come up really quickly. There's a chance that a lot of those will come through in a reconciliation package. I would like to see some of them come forward independently, and I would hope that the senators, at least 7 of them who are in risky positions, would actually read the mandate from the public and vote for those. But otherwise, they're going to come through probably in reconciliation. The other aspect is you're going to see also a termination of some of these programs. CBP1 app, that's going to go away. The CHNV program, that's going to go away. That's going to save us a bunch of money for reconciliation purposes as well. And then the final part of your question, which would be codification. We have to codify remain in Mexico policy, but that's also going to require diplomacy with Mexico, and that's where having a strong leader like Donald Trump has already produced results in discussions that he's had with President Sheinbaum, and I'm hoping that our relationship with Mexico is such that we can respect their sovereignty, but they'll respect our sovereignty, and they'll help us reenact the Remain in Mexico policy, but it needs to be codified in statute for sure.
May I ask a follow-up if no one else has questions?
Anybody want to, what do you guys think? Should we let her ask a follow-up?
I vote yes.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I'm curious, given the changes that Canada has made, I'm a reporter from the Canadian News Outlet.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be enough to satisfy Donald Trump and Canada avoid the terror threat? And how would you classify concerns that you might have about the northern border?
So the northern border has been, we've seen more encounters in the northern border in the last year and a half than we've ever seen before, right? I mean, and then we've also seen increasing drug trafficking coming across and some human trafficking as well. So we've got to bring that to a close, just like we have to bring the southern border under control. You're asking me to read the mind of President Trump, and I will say that I support him, and he's doing a masterful job. He's an incredible leader. Will what Canada's doing be enough to prevent tariffs being imposed upon Canada? I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any insight on that, but I simply don't know. But I hope that, again, our relationship with Canada is a great trading partner with the United States and sits on our northern border, and we respect their sovereignty. Hopefully we can work together and respect each other's sovereignty and resolve this border crisis that's actually from the northern border states, border to the northern states as well. With that, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you all for my colleagues for being here, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you. Good job, Andy.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good job. Good job. Thanks, buddy. Nice work. You look good.
Oh, hi. How's it going? Is the media center